The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everybody, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. I'm not sure if we're starting or not yet, but I'm going to talk anyway. And are we on? We are. Okay, excellent, very good. Welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Our guest this evening on this episode is County Executive Mark Harris. Mark's a frequent guest. He's been on many, many times in the past, and we're always happy to have you here. So thanks for being here tonight.
Well, thank you for having me on.
We want to talk about the county budget. I mean, it's, we're taping this in mid-September, and it's getting very close to the time. Before we know it, the tax bills are going to be in our mailboxes. And when are your county budget deliberations coming up?
Those are usually held in the end of October.
Okay.
And the county budget will be online through our website for people to look at probably by the middle of October. So people can look at it and go through it if they choose to before the county starts its deliberations.
Okay. Well, and we've got the county's website address that we'll be putting up throughout the half hour. So, they can check that out, of course, anytime, but the budget itself won't be online then for probably about another month.
That's right.
Okay, all right. Well, we've already heard about the possibility of a 13% tax increase from the schools. We're hearing about big increases for stormwater management for the city. We don't know what the state's going to do, but what are we looking at in terms of the county? Are we in as bad shape as everybody else?
Well, actually, we're looking at about a 1.5% increase in the county's levy. And it's very difficult to say how that'll impact individual taxpayers. If you remember last year, we had an increase in the levy of 2.7%. But when they allocated our levy over the market value of the different communities, and then they spread it over their assessed values, in Oshkosh that came out to be a small decrease in county taxes. And in Clayton, it was the highest increase was about 7%. So I can tell you what it is going to be on average, but for any given community or any given homeowner, it may vary quite a bit from that. But I would think that most homeowners will see a county tax bill increase of 2% or less.
Okay, so not as much as last year probably then.
Certainly should be less than last year for most taxpayers.
Well, that'll make you a popular guy in comparison to the school district and the city council and the city manager,
Well, I've had some luck with events and circumstances kind of meeting the county's needs. And the state had mandated that all the counties go into a family care district by 2013. And they also had a minimum population size in mind. So Fond du Lac County, which was a test county for a family care district, needed partners to get up to the minimum size that you can remain independent. So they were looking for partners, and they asked Manitowoc County and Winnebago County to merge into their family care district. And we did that as of July 1st of this year. So we've got some big savings in our 2010 budget that we're already in, and we get additional savings in 2011.
Okay.
In fact, one of the quirks of budgeting is the family care district's taking over services for the frail elderly and adult developmentally disabled individuals. So when that is moved out of the county's budget to the family care district, which is really an independent entity, that takes both expenses and revenues out of the county's budget. So that's probably going to remove about $11 to $12 million in expenses out of our budget, and a little bit less than that, about $1 million less than that, in revenues out of our budget. So it's a net positive to the county's budget of about $1 million.
Okay.
But it's a big swing in our total revenues and total expenditures. In fact, our total expenditures will be back to where they were in 2006.
Wow. Now, where does their budget come from? If their stuff is coming out of our county budget, where will their funding come from?
It comes from the state
Okay.
in a capitated amount. There's a fixed amount per person served. And they have to operate within that constraint of, not every individual has to be within that number, but the total they spend in aggregate has to be within the total of the capitated amount.
Gotcha.
The county will continue to put some money into the system, but we were getting $3 for every dollar we put in. So if $4 were spent, 3 of those would have been the state's dollars and 1 would be the county dollars.
Okay.
Now we won't be receiving the revenues from the state, and the money we put in is phased down gradually over time. Our share was about $5.5 million, and eventually it'll settle out closer to $1.5 million that we'll continue to put in each year.
Sure.
But that's a significant saving over the next 4 years. So that's
Sure.
helping us control the county's budget.
Where are our biggest problem areas? What's seen like the biggest increase in cost in the last year or so?
Well, we're always having increased costs in the sheriff's office,
Okay.
and it has to do with the number of prisoners drawn from our own community. When you build a jail, when it was built, it was projected to meet the demand for 10 years. But when it was first built, that meant we had an excess capacity that's gradually going away as our local population of prisoners grows. Well, you don't leave those beds empty because your costs, most of your costs aren't variable, most of your costs are fixed. So what you do is you lease out those beds. And when we were leasing beds, we were getting close to $60 a day per bed that was available. But as time's gone on, the number of beds we had available to lease to other jurisdictions
Right.
keeps going down. So the revenues in the sheriff's department go down with the loss of beds. And that always has to be then backfilled with the levy.
Sure.
So they're doing what they're supposed to, and
Right.
it's coming out by projections, but it means that their levy, the levy contribution to the sheriff's office has to go up every year.
And the number of beds available for lease, if you will, keeps going down because why? Because we're putting more of our own population from the county into the jail, or the state and other county jurisdictions just aren't sending us as many, or
No, it's
both?
that we have less beds available because
Okay.
we have more people from Winnebago County occupying the beds.
Okay.
Now, we're actually a leader in alternatives to incarceration with the STOP program and the drug court program, and now we're doing a juvenile stop program. We're doing a lot of things. We have day reporting. Sheriff Brooks has been very innovative,
Right.
and the judges have been very innovative in the different programs that they use to help hold down the number of prisoners. But even with those methods, there's been a gradual increase. Although it does seem like the growth is starting to slow. So maybe we're finally getting what the demographers thought we'd get 10 years ago,
Right.
that
Right.
maybe as we're getting older, we're getting a little wiser.
You'd like to think.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk more about the jail in particular a little bit later on, because I know that, we still have to do something because we're still running out of space. And so something has to be done, and there's been a study done, and there is movement toward that, expansion, if you will. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's talk more about the budget. Now, you brought a graph or a pie chart with you. What are we looking at here? This is where the money came from for this
current year.
Budget.
And the point I was hoping that pie chart would demonstrate is it's very easy for people to think that their property taxes are completely funding local governments, but that would be a mistaken belief. Local governments are financed by a combination of things. Local taxes are certainly a significant component. They were 41% in 2010. That'll rise to 45% in 2011. But the other large component is money transferred to us from the state government.
And that's the intergovernmental portion there?
Yes. There's
Okay.
also some federal monies involved. Child support enforcement, for instance, is financed by a combination of federal and state monies. But a lot of our programs, especially our human service programs, are funded by both state money and local money. And so that's a very significant part of our budget. That wedge of the pie has been shrinking, that our intergovernmental wedge, and it's generally been forced to be offset by the tax levy.
Okay.
So for instance, our total budget is going to shrink, our total spending, by almost $13 million.
Okay.
But the local tax levy is still going to have to rise by close to $1 million, or about 1.4%, just to keep the budget in balance. And then of course there's licenses and fees, there's interest income on our reserves, there's other sources of revenue in there as well that make up the whole pie.
Sure, and those are really kind of insignificant almost in terms of size when compared to those other two. Now, what is interfund? I see that 9.9% of the funds came from there. What exactly is that?
You know, a number of county departments perform services for other county departments. And if you're showing a pie chart that's showing your total revenues and your total expenses, you've got to reflect revenues that come to one department from another. And you have to do the same thing when you show the expenses. That's really business between departments of the county.
Okay.
Interest income is one that's put a lot of pressure on us as well. Just like the taxpayers at home, the amount of return we're getting on certificates of deposit or money markets or treasury notes, that's declined significantly.
Okay.
So the 2011 budget is probably going to trim, I think it was $400,000 from our interest income expectations. So even though we've managed to keep our reserves up, we're getting less interest income than we used to.
And the other category, which is where that interest income would fall, was only 2.7% of the total budget funding anyway. And that's also, I don't know if people at home can read that, but it says that that other category, it's not only interest income, but it's other taxes, miscellaneous revenues such as rentals, non-operating grants, and sale of property and equipment. So that 2.7% will become even less.
Yes, and in fact, another source of revenue in that category is the fees we were getting for storing Oshkosh Corporation vehicles. And apparently there's been some change in the regulations on the storage of those. So the number of vehicles that we're storing for them and taking a daily fee on is dropping as well. So that's going to come off several $100,000.
Wow. Well, but I mean, still, the fact that we're not in as bad shape as some other entity, I think that says a lot about what you guys at the county level are doing.
The public employees have really been demonized lately. And I'd be remiss not to point out that while we haven't reached agreements with all our unions, and when we do negotiations, it's an adversarial thing where, management wants to pay as little as possible and the unions
Right.
want the pay to be as high as possible. But they really have worked with us well. And The total range of contracts that have been agreed to so far has been between 0% with one union and 1.5% with another union. But all the contracts that have been settled also agreed to changes in the health insurance that's actually allowed us to have our benefit expense decrease from the 2010 budget to the 2011 budget. A deductible has been added to the health insurance plan. The agreements they had on the health insurance were complicated, but basically some employees were paying 10% and other employees were paying 15%, but subject to a dollar limit of a maximum amount per month, which generally held them below the 15.
Mm-hmm.
And they were paying the same percentage whether they took a mid-level plan with a deductible and higher co-pays or the highest level plan. We've shifted all that around where the county's basing its contribution on 90% of the plan that has a deductible and has the higher co-pays.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want the plan that's the premium plan,
The Cadillac plan, as some
exactly,
call it.
we're still only contributing 90% of that mid-level plan.
Okay.
So a lot of the employees are contributing a significant amount more if they stayed in the high-level plan, or they've got a plan that requires more out-of-pocket costs for them. And that's allowed us to keep those benefit costs down for 2011. I don't know that that's a situation we can duplicate in another year because you're not going to make additional changes
Right.
like that. But they are basically participating more with their health care costs than they have in the past. And we've also made some changes that some county employees are now making a contribution towards their pension plan.
Okay.
And probably over the next few years, most employees will be making at least a small contribution to their pension plan, because in all but one of our contracts, we have a maximum contribution that the county makes. And because of that, as the cost of the pension plan have been rising, we're starting to hit those thresholds. And in fact, one of our unions' threshold will be exceeded with the start of the next calendar year. So they'll be making a small contribution. All their employees in that union will be making a contribution. So
Well, we're moving in the right direction, though, because as you know, while public sector workers have been, as you said, demonized, it's mostly been over salaries and benefits, and people saying, well, they've got these golden Cadillac plans and this, that, and the other. They're not taking into account the quid pro quo things that come as part of bargaining and so forth. And I know it's frustrating, but you know, there's only so many things that you can do when it comes to mediation, arbitration, and all this bargaining that goes on.
If we don't reach an agreement with a union, first you go to mediation, and the mediator tries to get you closer together. We've got 3 contracts in mediation now. But if you don't come together with the help of the mediator, you go to arbitration. And this is a state law. Each side makes their last best offer, and the arbitrator has to pick one or the other without compromise. So
he can't piecemeal it. He
no,
takes
it's
one or the other, and that's
all
it.
of one or all of the other. No compromise. And so when you go to arbitration, you better be pretty sure that what you're offering is reasonable enough that you're going to win, or you're going to pay whatever the other side has set. So, you know, both sides are taking that gamble, but I think you end up paying more if you go to arbitration and lose than what you probably could have gotten with a little more flexibility at the bargaining table.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, Mark, which are the unions that are in mediation right now?
We're still working with Human Services,
Okay.
and I believe I really believe that'll come together. We're close.
Okay.
We had an agreement with, I believe, Dispatch that they have not taken to the union for a vote, and I think they're kind of putting that on hold to see where the deputies come out.
Okay.
And we're in mediation with the deputies, and we're also in mediation with the highway workers.
Okay.
But I think we're close to some sort of agreement with all of them, and I still think it's possible that all of them will be settled by year end. But they also could fall apart at the last minute.
Yeah, you just never know. Well, let's go back and talk a little bit more about the jail, because I said we were going to touch back on that, and when Sheriff Brooks was here with one of his staff members, I want to say probably a couple of months ago, they were making a very strong case for why there is going to be a need for an expansion at the county jail. And people are upset about this. You can see it on the newspapers blog, for example. They don't understand, and what they're failing to recognize is that this jail has lasted, space-wise, as long as it was projected to last.
Absolutely.
This isn't like somebody's done something wrong. It's lived its lifespan.
Except perhaps the inmates.
Well, yeah, with that exception. But I mean, it's reached its life expectancy that was projected before it was even built.
Yeah, actually the projections were amazingly accurate for when it would be full. What they have to understand, again, the conditions in the jail are state mandated. You sort prisoners in pods based on a variety of factors, so that a rougher, tougher, more violent population is not going to be in the same pod as a younger, DUI person. So you need to have enough space to be able to sort people appropriately. And if you don't, then you've got to place them with somebody else's institution. So instead of that $60 a day per prisoner coming into the county,
you're paying it out.
You're paying $60 out, and then you got another cost. Every time there's a hearing or there's some reason they have to be at the courthouse, you now have to send 2 people to pick them up and deliver them to the courthouse. And those costs are high.
That's what Sheriff Brooks was saying, and there's a lot of overtime that can result in that, because not just of the drive time, but you do have to have the 2 deputies. They have to, be there at a certain time for court. And sometimes it's sitting around waiting too. You don't always, just because you may have a 9 a.m. call doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to call your case at 9 a.m. You may wait until 9:30, 9:45. So he was bringing up all those points, and I think they're very, very valid. Now, there was a study that was being done, and where are we at with this study? Where are things with this project at?
Well, the first study that was being considered was, we were looking at a joint jail facility. But in the end, one of the counties decided to drop out of that joint study.
Was that Calumet or Outagamie?
Actually, it was Outagamie that dropped out.
Right.
But that also had problems under state law, because the law provides that wherever the jail is located, that sheriff is in charge of it. And so to have a truly joint jail facility would have to require some changes in the law. So now we're just looking at, should we expand our jail? And part of the study is there other alternatives to incarceration we could investigate to slow the growth of the population? It's kind of a very broad study, and that's just started. But I don't think they're going to find easy ways to hold down our population, because again, our county's kind of a leader in programs that are alternates to incarcerations, and programs that are intended to reduce recidivism. Remember, we've already got Huber prisoners staying in their own homes on bracelets, rather than going out during the day to work and coming home and staying at night at the Huber facility. We've got the day reporting for some people who might have been in jail. Instead, they come in and report every day to a facility. And we're already doing all these things to hold down the population. I don't think we have much room left. But if the study says otherwise, I'll be thrilled.
Okay. We've got about 4.5 minutes left here, so let's talk about a couple of other things real quickly. While we're on the subject of law enforcement and so forth, the 911 Communications Center, there is some talk about maybe having a joint communications center with another county. Is that Calumet County, or what county is that?
Actually, Outagamie and Calumet.
Okay, so even though the jail thing fell through, the 3 counties may be partnering as far as a communications center goes.
Yes, and we know we've already got the technology to make that possible, because right now Outagamie County is the backup. If our system has a failure, then you get dispatched. You don't know when you call 911 where it's being answered.
Right.
But if our system fails, it would be answered in Outagamie County, and they would dispatch from there. And actually, on at least one occasion, that's occurred, where we had a system problem and Outagamie dispatched for part of a day.
Okay. Well, I know sometimes, sometimes if you're traveling, like, for example, down the highway and you need to call 911, and this did happen with me one time with an accident that had occurred. Thankfully, we weren't involved in it, but I called in to report someone else who had been in a wreck, and it was fairly close to the county line. And so I just dialed 911 from the cell phone, and they asked, what county I was in.
And how do you know?
Well, I knew where I was, but I mean, they didn't know, but they did ask. And so, I think that goes to kind of prove your point, The other thing is a regional health center, not necessarily regional, but partnering with the city of Oshkosh. This is something that you've been talking with
For the
Mark.
Department of Health.
Yes. Yeah. You've been talking with the city manager, Mark Roloff. Where are things at with that?
I think it's something that will probably go to the council after there's a vote from the Board of Health in the city.
Okay.
And I don't know if it'll happen or not, but at least we're doing the exploration. And I think what it's coming down to is that the savings are not significant. And in fact, there might be a slightly higher cost for Oshkosh taxpayers to be with the county, but they would get a level 3 health department that performs a lot more services than the current health department. Over time, I think there actually would be efficiencies where those costs could be reduced. But that's the trade-off. The biggest advantage is it allows the WIC program, which the county provides to all of the county, both cities and towns. It would allow that to coordinate better with the health department. And I think there could be a real advantage to the community health from that. So it's probably more about better health services than it is about saving money. But I think over time there even could be some savings in money.
Would it be, significantly higher for a city of Oshkosh resident if this were to happen?
No, it would be a small incremental increase probably.
Okay. And you say a higher level of service being with the county as opposed to the city. Explain that just real quickly, because right now I would think that if there's something that you can't get at the city level, being a county resident, you would be able to draw from the county resources for something like that. Is that not how it works?
Well, with things like vaccinations, we've not worried too much on where people were from, but technically the services should only go to that portion of the county that's covered by the health department.
Okay.
And right now, Oshkosh, Neenah, and Menasha all have their own health department. So your county tax bill doesn't include the health department charges. It's only spread over the parts of the county that have the health services, which is really everything besides Oshkosh, Neenah, and Menasha.
Gotcha.
Now, we're also talking with Neenah and Menasha about a merger there as well.
Okay.
And this is actually a pattern. The city of Madison and the county of Madison have merged their health departments. Rock County merged theirs with Beloit. This is pretty typical. Most counties are down to one health department and it's on the county level.
Well, and it makes sense to do it where it can be done as long as people aren't going to be suffering in one way or another. So.
And there's kind of an opportunity because right now there's only a temporary health department director in Neenah. In Oshkosh, the longtime health department director is gone, and there's just an interim appointment who's really the head of the senior center.
Right.
So he's doing double duty, and that's not a long-term solution acceptable to the state. But it does pose an opportunity, and if we can get some efficiencies and some improvements in services, I think it's a good idea.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, very good. Well, our time's up. So thank you very much for being here, though. And it's good news that we're not going to have as much of an increase as we did last year.
Sure. It's going to be very small, but it's going to be uneven across the county.
Okay. Excellent. Very good. Well, we're going to take a real short break, and when we come back, we'll be talking with some folks about the proposed closure of our mail facility here in Oshkosh. We'll be right back.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, I finally have some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing well. We have good days and bad days over here. We try to remember the good ones and get through the bad ones. Mostly we have each other, and that's what keeps us going. And Mom, since you asked, if anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, your son, Michael.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We're in an emergency situation. We don't have extra. We have a little bit of water and a little bit of food. A meeting place, no.
No.
I don't think we have a first aid kit.
We have tuna fish, we have
Right.
beans, we have canned tomatoes,
True.
you know.
That's true, but that's really not survival food. Tomato paste.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. Very happy to be joined now by Dave Meyer on my right. He is the president of the Oshkosh Area Local 178 of the American Postal Workers Union, and Brian Spanbauer to my left. He is the vice president of that same union. And if you've been reading the newspaper and you've been driving around town, you've no doubt seen signs that say Save 5491 mail, and you've been reading in the newspaper, I'm sure, about the possible closure of the mail. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing or saying the name of the facility correctly. Is it the mail processing facility? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna talk about how this came to be and what it means and so forth. So first of all, thanks very much to both of you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
You know, where exactly has this idea come from? There was a study that was done, correct?
Currently, there's a study. It started, the current one against Oshkosh started on August 2nd.
Okay.
The employees were informed that we're under AMP study, possible consolidation of our mail processing operation into the Green Bay office. The first part of the study, my understanding, is a 45-day study, and the last we heard, possibly we're going to get an answer on the 20th of this month.
Okay, so a couple days from now, we're taping this on the 16th, so by the time this show would start to air, you could possibly have an answer.
It's possible.
Okay.
And the thing about this AMP study that they're doing now is different. They did a study in Oshkosh in 2007, an AMP study, and they wanted to just take our outgoing mail and send it to Green Bay. Well, that fell through. And then September 3rd of 09, they wanted to take Green Bay's outgoing mail and bring it to us. That ended around August 1st, supposedly. They stopped that. Difference with this AMP study is they want to take all of our mail and send it to Green Bay. So it is different than the last two AMP studies. It's completely different.
Okay. Well, I know I kind of looked at your website, and I say kind of because I was a little unclear. I looked at it and I still wasn't sure exactly what they're looking at doing. So I don't know if I was just not understanding it or if it was put together by someone who understands it so well that, because you work with it day in and day out, that the general population couldn't understand it. But how many employees really will this affect? If this facility on 20th Street is the one we're talking about, if that were to close, would we still be able to mail there? Would we still be able to buy postage there? What kinds of things how would this directly affect the postal customer?
The postal customer, the window operation should still be in effect.
They would.
Hours would be changed though.
Okay.
Drop-off times of mail would have to be earlier. Pickup times in the morning would be later.
Okay.
Because remember, the mail's going to travel over 100 miles round trip just to come back to the 549 area.
Whereas if you mailed a letter, say to your neighbor here in Oshkosh, it just goes through here now. Next day they're going to get that letter. I said now that letter's got to travel up to Green Bay and come back here if they were going to do such a thing.
Okay.
So every customer, every business, post office box customer, you're going to get your mail later in the day. There's no way around that, and I think you'll agree that there's just no way that possible that your mail service will stay the same.
You know, that facility on 20th Street, it's been there for as long as I can remember.
1974.
That's a ways.
New
That's a
facility.
ways back. Now, it's a huge facility too. If they were no longer distributing mail from there or sorting mail, well, I don't know. Would they still be sorting mail there, or would they just pick up all the mail and take it all up to Green Bay, and then it would get sorted and everything up there?
That's what will happen. All the mail
Okay.
will not be processed at all in Oshkosh. It'll all be sent to Green Bay and processed.
So what would happen to this huge facility that's sitting there right now?
That's the unknown.
That's the unknown.
That's the unknown. And
Because that seems like a huge waste.
and it is, and we have a lot of room for expansion in the Green Bay, in our office compared to Green Bay. Green Bay has no room for expansion whatsoever.
Okay.
We could build probably 3 plants the size that we have right now and still have room. And as we speak, next week, they plan on spending over $300,000 to blacktop the facility. They're going to.
Okay.
So they are still putting money into the facility. It's a nice facility, and we're proud of the facility.
As far as the customer, they're still going to see their mailman come. They're still going to be able to go to the counter and buy a stamp or mail a package. It's just the people behind the scenes that they don't see that process the mail at
Sure.
during the night.
And so someone sitting at home may say, well, you know, if I'm still going to see my regular mailman or mail lady, I'm still going to be able to go to either of locations in Oshkosh, whether downtown or on 20th. If I'm not going to see the changes, why should I care about this? What would you say to them? Well, I mean, how would you answer?
You are going to see the changes. Every customer, every business is going to see the change. You're going to get your mail later. If you want your mail an hour and a half later every day, or mailing to areas like Milwaukee, Madison, Portage area, if you mail a letter there from Oshkosh, it's going to get there tomorrow. With this, currently, with this change, it would take 2 days for a letter because it's got to go to Green Bay and then to Madison, Milwaukee, Portage area. So that would end up taking 2 days.
Okay, and so that's one of the reasons why people should care, because it is going to take longer for something to get from point A to point B.
No question about it.
Okay.
Absolutely. And on any given night, a rough estimate of 80% of the mail that'll be processed tonight now in Oshkosh, 80% of that mail stays in the 549 area. Because people don't understand, we sort mail for the 549 area, goes all the way to Coloma, Fond du Lac, every zip code that has 549. So 80% of that mail doesn't even leave Oshkosh.
The 549
It's going to go
area.
back out to the 549 areas. Now they're going to ship it up to Green Bay. It's going to come back down and then go to all the little 549 area post offices.
I was going to say, this covers a wide area, because we were in the Red Granite and kind of Watoma area last night for dinner with some friends, and we saw signs, you know, these save 549 mail.com signs all the way up there. So geographically, like, how wide of an area would you say that this covers?
Well, we cover 9 counties
Okay.
and 52
Two offices.
we sort mail for. 9 counties. It's a big area.
Okay.
Very big.
And so, talk to us a little bit. Talk about your opposition here. Talk about the reasons why the Postal Service seems to think that this is going to save money if Green Bay has no more room for expansion. What are they thinking as far as how this is going to work out? I mean, if there's no room for expansion, at some point they're going to have to build something. I mean, the whole point of this is cost savings, I would assume. but you're not really saving costs if you have to turn right around and build something somewhere else, right?
And then, like I say, in Green Bay, they couldn't build. And also, if they move our mail up there, they have the carriers in their building. We have 2 separate buildings. We have an annex and the main post office. Their carriers are in the same building. So what they'll have to do if they send our equipment up there, they'll have to move the carriers out of their building to fit our equipment into that building, and they're going to have to lease a building to put the carriers in. And also, then they're going to have to transport the mail from their main office to the carrier annex, where they'll have to also make that up to Postal Cold. And remember, they're going to lease a building. It's going to cost more cost effective. And where we are right here, we have our own separate unit net. And also, we're concerned on fitting in all this equipment. We'll have to get OSHA involved to make sure that there's going to be the proper egress and everything that needs to be done. Because if it's too cramped and too this, people are going to end up getting hurt up there.
I guess, Cheryl, that's what we don't understand. We don't see the cost savings, and that's one of the big issues in this.
Okay. How many employees, I know that you said they're behind the scenes, but how many employees are we talking about that this would affect their jobs? And people would they be out of work or would they be transferred somewhere else?
No, see, and that's the point we're trying to get across to the general public, that we're not going to lose our jobs. So we're not here just complain that we're going to lose our jobs, but what we're saying is we will have jobs. Some will go to Green Bay, some will go to out of state. So loss of revenue for everybody in the 549 area and the state of Wisconsin. If some of us have to go to Minnesota, Indiana, or wherever that may be, that houses that we own now, taxes that we pay now aren't going to be there. They're going to be somewhere else. So we all will be suffering on this. And the biggest thing another thing we complain about is the service. They'll tell you it's not going to affect the service whatsoever, but they are so wrong, very wrong.
And as far as a number of people, probably somewhere could be up to 150 people. 150 people that be affected and relocated.
Sure. Well, and that's only if they choose to accept. I mean, maybe somebody doesn't want to move out of state.
Then their option is it's going to be you take that job or you resign.
Or you're done.
So then,
and
conceivably, people could be out of work.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
I mean, they
could.
may have children in school. Their spouse may have a good job here that they don't want to leave. There could be any number of reasons. They may have an ailing parent. Any number of reasons why someone may not want to leave the state or the city. And
in the city of Oshkosh, we all know the people that lived here for many years. City of Oshkosh has lost enough already. Morgan, Dorr, numerous places we all know, and that has affected the economy.
Sure.
And the people that we represent in our union, I figured out just over 60% have a Oshkosh mailing address. So.
Okay. I know we kind of talked about your geographic area, but some of the other things, you guys had wanted to make a few points about the pieces of mail that are handled by this facility in Oshkosh, and the number of zip codes that you handle, and also what percentage of the mail that you handle out here does stay in Oshkosh. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Like we had said kind of before, at an average of 80% of that mail will just stay right here after it's processed tonight. And as far as the offices we sort for, I kind of said this before, 52 offices, 9 counties. That's huge. That is a big area, and I don't think people realize that. And let's take Fond du Lac, who's the farthest south. Now their mail is going to go all the way up to Green Bay and back. They're going to get their mail probably the latest yet. And businesses, this is going to be a big problem for businesses for the reason we have caller services where people come early to pick up their mails.
Yep.
That there'll be caller service, but it won't be available for the times that they're getting their mail now. Some of these businesses are going to have to change their businesses, move their people around, maybe even get rid of people. It affects everybody.
State Representative Gordon Hentz told me at our picket on September 1st, he says it's going to change the way businesses do business, and he's exactly right on that. And then you had asked about the amount of mail. The current number we had was probably 5 million to 6 million pieces per week.
Day or
no, per
a
week that we
okay.
do, yeah.
Okay. All right. So when Gordon Hentz was talking about, it's going to change the way business does business, I mean, what kinds of things, other than getting mail later, because either it's being delivered later or you can't pick it up as early as you're accustomed to, is he thinking that they will go with other services if they have packages to ship and that kind of thing?
We have a major bank in town here. I guess it's their corporate office. And we heard a rumor the last day or two that they got wind of what's going on, and they said they may pull out of Oshkosh if this happens. I mean, you have to think that all payments that they receive or the mail that they send out is going to be a day or two later. So it's a major thing for businesses in this area.
This is even affects churches. The churches that send out bulk mails. We are now considered like a SEC bulk mail. So if you do a bulk mailing, you get a cheaper rate because it starts right here in Oshkosh. Well, that will go away. So there's a potential. How much you pay per piece could be as much as 3 to 4 cents more per piece just because we're going to move our mail. So everybody suffers. Churches are out there looking for money always. Hospitals. Every organization that does any type of bulk mailer, and there's a lot of them. Just think about it.
Just that reclassification of our office is a big deal for these businesses.
Lots of money.
You've held a couple of informational pickets so far, and Brian, you sort of alluded to this a little bit before when you were talking about Representative Hentz. How many people participated in the pickets, and what was the response that you were getting?
The response, I think, was overwhelming from people. The people we talked to, I bet high 90% were in favor, supporting us against this consolidation. As far as the pickets, we had 2 on September 1st, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and I think about 50 people at each one day.
Each one probably, yes.
And were they postal workers and union members, or were they citizens?
We had a few citizens come, and then local politicians.
Okay.
We had Mayor Esslinger showed up, Councilman Bob Peschel, Deputy Mayor Jessica King, State Reps Gordon Hentz and Richard Spamore.
Okay.
And I think the thing that impressed both of us, they didn't just show up. I said they picked up a picket sign. We're right there with us.
Okay. Have you been in contact with other elected officials? I know you passed by Mark Harris here, the county executive. Have you been in contact with other either local leaders or on a statewide basis?
Yes, we met with the city council last night to present our resolutions, and we are meeting with the county, I think Tuesday, Winnebago County, and we've been to numerous, Neenah, Monash, we got meetings set up with Appleton, Fond du Lac, Omro. We're hoping we can get to every 549 city that has some type of a council, mayor, or whatever, to present resolutions on why we think this shouldn't happen, and we want their help to say if they're going to do this, then it has to be equitable, not just pick Oshkosh.
Right. Well, and that's going to be a huge undertaking just in and of itself, because if you've got all these different counties and these various communities, 50-some that you're trying to get to, that's a lot.
It is.
And in what kind of a time frame are you hoping to do that?
I guess as soon as possible, but it's
we're trying to.
It is a little overwhelming right now.
It is. There is a lot, and I appreciate all the people that helped us and the support of the city. It's like you say, you see these signs. I delivered probably 20 this afternoon. We have a web page, www.save549mail.com. You get on there. There's lots of information on there. We'll give you signs. We have petitions to sign. And it's getting out more and more. You can't hardly drive around town or west, east, north, whatever, that you don't see these signs. And we have to educate the people out there, because a lot of people don't understand, and that's what we're trying to do.
Right. Well, and I think we've been putting up the website address too. At least I hope we have throughout our discussion here. And we were talking about the signs. You know, if someone's going to get a sign, that's great. But you know, please don't keep them in the terrace, because the city could either, you know, send these guys a nasty letter, or they could fine you or send you a nasty letter. I mean, the city owns the terrace, and so they shouldn't be going there, and we don't want to get these guys in trouble or yourself in trouble.
Nope.
So just
We'll
put them
come
in your yard.
We'll move them for you if need be.
What else can people do? How else can they get involved in this? We talked about the petitions and the signs. What else can people do? How can they help?
I mean, to me, the people themselves, if they call our union office, 920-233-8454, they can get petitions. We can send them forms. They can gather signatures for us. I mean, to help us out. Go around to your neighborhoods and gather them and mail the form back to us.
Can they download a petition off your website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they can call too, but if they've got access to a computer and a printer, they can just go to this save549mail.com website and download it.
Yep.
Print as many as they want, and
Right.
get them signed.
There are some people that call us that don't have computers. Not
Yep.
everybody has computers, and we'll take you a sign, we'll bring you a petition, and we'll take care of it for you. We'll put a stamp on it for you if you need a stamp.
There you
even.
That's something you don't hear from the Postal Service
Nope,
every day.
but we'll do it.
And the huge thing is we want them to contact the politicians. Write your letters to Petri and
to manage
Senator
your consumer
Feinberg.
affairs, and that's on our webpage. That's an important place, especially for businesses, to send questions to. What is this going to do to my business? Will it affect it whatsoever? And not that you're going to get an honest answer, but see what kind of answer you get, and then when this all gets down to the nitty gritty here, hopefully it doesn't go, but if it does go, we'll have a town hall meeting, and they'll explain their side, and we'll explain our side, and we'll see what happens.
You know, we talked a little bit earlier about, you know, that we're taping this on the 16th of September, and you could possibly hear something on a study by the 20th of this month. If they were to decide to go ahead and do this, what is the earliest that you think something would happen where this particular facility would close and stop doing some of the things that it's currently doing?
the information I had was that a final answer, if everything went perfect the way the Postal Service is supposed to do this, like the middle of December is when we'd be informed, and like March would be when people would actually move if this went through.
Okay.
Right now it's a 45-day study. Then my understanding is a 30-day review at the area level, which is out of Chicago or St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a period after that, if it's still going on, where input from the public and mailers and customers.
Where did this idea come from? I mean, where is it coming from? The top, you know, the Postmaster General in Washington, D.C., or is it coming from Green Bay, or where is this really coming from?
Well,
If you know.
I mean, we all agree, you know, the post office, the way the economy is, everybody's suffering, and we need to somehow we want to stay in business, and we have to work smart. But we also want to make sure, again, if this needs to be done, we want it to be done equitable with another comparison of another facility. Don't just pick all of our mail out and pick on our facility without checking with another facility. And if they can prove, and dollar-wise, dollar cents, and service doesn't affect, then that's just the way it's going to be. But if it's not done fair and equitable, it's not fair to us or the city or the 549 area.
Sure. Did it start, though? I mean, an idea has to get started somewhere. Did it start with the folks in Green Bay saying, hey, you know, we'd like to, you know, take on this additional responsibility here? Probably higher up it started. Do you have any idea where it started?
Really don't have an idea where it started. A big problem we have is like in the middle of January when they're doing the study.
You're losing your mic here.
The Green Bay study, when they were doing that middle of July, we had learned that a spokeswoman for the Postal Service said that Oshkosh was the better of the two offices. Well, then here come 3 weeks later, just out of the blue, 180-degree turn, and the study's on us, closing us, and we don't understand that at all.
Yeah, their main spokesperson for the Lakeland district said how we were better suited, better facility, better equipped for expansion, just better for everything. And it wasn't 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, we're like, no.
So we don't understand what's going on right now.
Well, let me ask this. Not that we want to see a similar situation in Green Bay, but if they don't have any room for expansion, and we do here in Oshkosh, why would someone in their infinite wisdom not take a look at that and say, okay, maybe we should close that facility up there and move things to Oshkosh? I mean, again, we're shifting the monkey onto their back.
Right.
We don't necessarily want to do that, but if you're looking to streamline costs and save money and improve efficiencies, maybe that would make a little more sense than doing what they're talking about right now.
And that's what we're trying to make sure it's accomplished, that it's done fair, that it's equitable. You know, I don't know how many more times I can say that it's equitable, but we won't know that unless, if they only do this on Oshkosh, we'll never know. That will not be fair. And we have even Congressman Petri wants to make sure that it's done fair and equitable.
Yeah.
He wants to make sure.
I'm going to ask a tough question here, and it maybe puts you guys in a difficult position, maybe it doesn't, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you trust the powers that be enough that when the results of the study come back, would you, if the results of the study truly say, okay, this is not a smart idea, do you trust those powers that be enough to say that the study said that? Or do you think that this is just something that someone somewhere wants to do, and they're possibly going to skew the results or not be honest about the results of the study?
I don't think, though we all will get the results, but if they can prove to the dollar, that's what we want. Anybody can hand out anything, and here's what we're going to save,
right?
Or here's what we would lose. Without them to be able to back up every dollar, unless they do that, I won't believe it. And after they do that, for Oshkosh, all we're asking that then it's be done equitable on the other side, another office, whatever, if you want to say Green Bay, because that's where it's going to go.
Sure.
And then if they can show us, now let's see between the two, and whoever, I don't want to call winner or loser, but what's more feasible, that's where the mail's going to have to go. That's all we want.
The one drift that we had, Cheryl, was that probably about a week ago or so, we had heard that they want to close one office in every district, and we believe there's like 74 districts right now in the country for the Postal Service. But my argument on that has been that our district here, which Oshkosh is a part of, Lakeland District, is a top revenue producing district out of the 74. So my opinion is, why are you touching a district that's successful, efficient?
And our office alone is one of the best plants in the district of the Lakeland district.
Okay. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here and enlightening us about this. And good luck in your fight. It sounds like it's definitely a battle. Want to just recap here their phone number for the Local 178 of the American Postal Workers Union is 233-8454. Their website, as we've been putting up throughout the half-hour discussion, is save549mail.com. And give them a call, go online, whatever you need to do or can do with the electronics that you have, and help them out if you're concerned about this. So that's going to do it for us. Thanks again. And thanks to all of you. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.